Corporate espionage investigations were not supposed to involve the catering staff, but Elena Martinez found herself in the center of the biggest case of her career while balancing appetizers on a silver tray. At 26, she had been working undercover as a server at the prestigious Summit Club for 8 months, gathering evidence about illegal insider trading among the city's financial elite. Tonight's private dinner for Blackstone Capital's board members was supposed to be her final surveillance assignment. Tomorrow, she would return to her real job as a federal investigator and present the evidence that would bring down one of the most corrupt investment firms on the East Coast. "Miss, could you bring another bottle of the Montrachet?" called one of the executives from Table 7, where the evening's most important guests were seated. Elena approached the table with practiced invisibility, the kind that allowed servers to move through rooms full of powerful people without being truly seen. The man who had requested the wine was Adrian Chen, Blackstone Capital's youngest senior partner at 33. He was known for his brilliant strategic mind, his ruthless business tactics, and his ability to remember every detail of every deal he had ever negotiated. "Of course, sir," Elena replied, refilling glasses while listening carefully to the conversation that could provide the final pieces of evidence she needed. "The Jakarta acquisition is moving faster than expected," Adrian was saying to his colleagues. "But we need to verify the memorization of the subsidiary contracts before we proceed. Too many moving parts to risk any oversights." Elena's attention sharpened. The Jakarta deal was the centerpiece of her investigation, a complex international transaction that involved multiple shell companies and suspicious financial transfers. "Adrian, you know we can trust your memory," one of his associates replied with a laugh. "You have never forgotten a single detail in any negotiation." "Memory can be unreliable under pressure," Adrian said seriously, pulling a thick document from his briefcase. "I want independent verification of every clause, every subsidiary relationship, every financial connection outlined in this contract." Elena glanced at the document as she served the wine, noting the dense text and complex diagrams that covered multiple pages. It was exactly the kind of comprehensive evidence that could make or break her case. "The problem is confidentiality," another executive added. "We cannot bring in outside consultants who might leak sensitive information. This deal is too important to risk exposure." Adrian studied the document thoughtfully, then looked up with an expression that Elena had learned to recognize as his problem-solving face. "You know what?" Adrian said with a slight smile that suggested he was about to propose something unexpected. "I have an idea for how to test whether this document is as memorable as we think it is." He turned toward Elena, who was still standing beside their table with the wine bottle. "Miss, what is your name?" Elena felt her heart rate increase, hoping that 8 months of maintaining her cover identity would hold up under direct scrutiny. "Elena, sir." "Elena, I have a proposition for you," Adrian said, holding up the contract document. "This is a complex business agreement with hundreds of details, dates, and financial figures. I am willing to bet that no one could study this document for 60 seconds and then accurately recall more than a dozen specific details." "That seems like a reasonable assumption," Elena replied carefully, wondering where this was leading. "Here is my challenge," Adrian continued, his voice taking on the confident tone of someone accustomed to making dramatic gestures. "If you can study this document for exactly 1 minute, then recite back at least 50 accurate details about its contents, I will pay you my annual salary." The table fell silent. Elena heard one of the executives whisper something about 7 figures, and another colleague asked Adrian if he had lost his mind. Elena stared at the document Adrian was holding, calculating the risks and opportunities of what he was proposing. She had spent months trying to get access to exactly this type of detailed financial information, and now it was being offered to her as part of a seemingly impossible memory challenge. 50 details in 1 minute of study. Elena asked, wanting to confirm the parameters of what she was agreeing to. 50 accurate, specific details, Adrian confirmed. Names, dates, financial figures, contract clauses, subsidiary relationships, anything that demonstrates you actually absorbed the information rather than just guessing. Elena looked around the table at the expectant faces of some of the most powerful men in the financial industry. None of them had any idea that they were challenging a federal investigator with an eidetic memory who had spent her entire career training to absorb and recall complex information under pressure. 1 minute to study, then immediate recall. Elena asked. 1 minute, Adrian confirmed, pulling out his phone to time the challenge. Starting now. Elena took the document and began the process she had perfected during years of investigative training. Rather than reading linearly, she photographed each section with her eyes, creating mental images that she could access later with perfect clarity. The subsidiary relationships, the financial transfers, the timeline of acquisitions, the names of shell companies, all of it was automatically catalogued in her memory. Time. Adrian called exactly 60 seconds later. Elena handed back the document and looked calmly at the men who expected to see her struggle and fail. Instead, she began to speak with the precise authority of someone who knew exactly what she had seen. Page 1 establishes the primary acquisition target as Jakarta International Holdings, with a purchase price of $2.7 billion, finalized through 3 subsidiary transactions on March 15, April 2, and April 23 of this year, Elena began. Adrian's confident expression began to shift toward amazement as Elena continued. The primary shell companies involved are Meridian Offshore Limited, registered in the Cayman Islands, Pacific Bridge Financial, incorporated in Delaware, and Golden Coast Investments, based in Singapore. The document indicates that funds were transferred through First National Bank of Switzerland, account number ending in 7749, with secondary transfers through Bangkok Commercial Bank. By the time Elena had recited her 30th detail, the entire table was staring at her in stunned silence. When she reached 50 accurate specifics about dates, names, financial figures, and contractual relationships, Adrian looked as if he had seen something impossible. How? Adrian asked quietly. That level of recall is not humanly possible. Elena realized that she had reached the moment of truth in her investigation. She could maintain her cover and walk away with evidence that might not be admissible in court, or she could reveal her true identity and use this moment to gather information that could end Blackstone Capital's criminal activities permanently. It is possible if you have been trained for it, Elena said, reaching into her server's vest and pulling out her federal credentials. Agent Elena Martinez, Financial Crimes Division. Mr. Chen, you and your associates are under investigation for securities fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit insider trading. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of Adrian setting down his wine glass with a shaking hand. The document you just had me memorize, Elena continued, contains evidence of illegal financial transactions that violate approximately 15 federal statutes. Thank you for providing such detailed documentation of your criminal activities. 3 months later, as Elena testified in federal court about the evidence she had gathered during her undercover assignment, she reflected on the strange irony of how the case had concluded. Adrian Chen, whose confidence in his own intellectual superiority had led him to challenge a federal agent to a memory contest, sat at the defendant's table facing 20 years in prison. Agent Martinez, the prosecutor asked during her testimony, in your expert opinion, was the defendant aware that he was providing evidence of his own criminal activities? I believe Mr. Chen was so convinced that no one could match his intellectual abilities that he never considered the possibility that he was speaking to someone whose job required those exact same skills, Elena replied. After the trial, as Elena prepared to return to her regular investigative duties, she received an unexpected visitor at her office. Adrian Chen, now facing a lengthy prison sentence but out on bail pending appeal, had requested a meeting. Agent Martinez, Adrian said as he sat across from her desk, I want you to know that I am not here to ask for leniency or to complain about the investigation. Then why are you here? Elena asked. To tell you that what you did was remarkable, Adrian said with genuine admiration. I have spent my entire career believing that intelligence and memory were tools for personal advancement. You showed me that those same abilities could be used to protect people from men like me. Elena studied his face, seeing something that looked like genuine remorse. What will you do now? I am going to plead guilty and cooperate fully with the government's investigation, Adrian replied. And if I am given the opportunity, I want to use my knowledge of financial crimes to help investigators like you catch other criminals. That would be a good use of your abilities, Elena agreed. As Adrian prepared to leave, he paused at the door. Agent Martinez, I have one question. When I offered you my salary for memorizing that document, were you tempted to just take the money and disappear? Elena smiled. Mr. Chen, some things are worth more than money. Justice is one of them. After Adrian left, Elena reflected on how the most important